Well, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, Raider Nation. How about that? Eddie Paskal hanging out with my guy Jason Fitz in the fifth quarter, presented by Twitch. And Fitz, your Las Vegas Raiders just went on the road and beat the Kansas City Chiefs 20-14 to not only ruin Christmas for Patrick Mahomes and company, but keep the slim playoff hopes alive. And we have a lot to get into with this game, Fitz, but wow, I think is the appropriate place to start. You look at the stats, it wasn't very pretty. The Raiders dominated the line of scrimmage. They bullied the Chiefs. Where do you want to begin, my friend?
I want to begin by skipping around and singing "It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas." Because let's be honest, man, like we did not see this coming.
No way.
Nobody saw this coming. And I think we have to be real. So I'm going to go back and early plug one of my shows, Yahoo Sports. I do Sunday Night Blitz. And last night I was asked what I expected. So we're taping last night late on Christmas Eve. What were my expectations for today? And I said, you know what? We know a few things. We know Kelsey's always going to get his. He didn't. We know that Mahomes is always going to get his. He did, but man, this defense was amazing. And I said this, and we know that if somehow, some way there's a miracle here and the Raiders get this win, Antonio Pierce is getting this job. Like, to me, this wasn't just a win. This was the sort of win that changes the entire trajectory of where the franchise is going to go for the next 3 years. This is the win that says we're not that far off. This is the win that says, oh my God, we have the right pieces here. This is the win that says we got the right guys on the sideline. This is the win that says we got the guys playing the right way. Like, in an overreactionary world right now, as we sit in this second, not only did the Raiders beat the Chiefs, they beat the Chiefs handily. This wasn't one of those Kansas City gave away the game. The Raiders defense came to play, and I have a hard time walking away from what we just saw and not thinking that this team is 5 times better than I thought they were 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, surprise in the best possible way is kind of where I begin. I mean, like, the one thing that you and I have talked about a lot, and we knew that it was going to happen, perhaps not to this case, but this defense has traveled in 2023. Patrick Graham, I know I do it every week, Jason Fitz. Round of applause for Patrick Graham and what he has done yet again. I mean, this dude is fully in the matrix at the moment. But I did not anticipate the level of defensive intensity, the level of defensive excellence that came from Pat Graham's group today. Fitz, they scored 14 points in 7 seconds. 7 seconds! We do have some fantastic trivia regarding that later in the show, Fitz. But what this defense has done, and we have talked about it time and time again, they have become the catalyst for the 2023 Las Vegas Raiders. They have the heartbeat of the 2023 Las Vegas Raiders. And this defense packed their bags yesterday here in Las Vegas. They flew out to Kansas City, and they won this football game. They took down the biggest, baddest dude on the yard in Patrick Mahomes, and they are flying back to Vegas as we speak, 7-8. And like, to your point, we are now in the midst of, it feels like a franchise-defining, franchise-changing kind of moment for the Las Vegas Raiders. And the fact that it happened on Christmas and we can celebrate, let me see this, Fitz. Let's see if I can turn this is how I'm feeling right now. Can I do it?
No, you can do it. What do you do? Oh, the sweater lights up. Oh my God. What are we doing?
Just like the Raiders defense, Fitz. Just like the Raiders defense. Incredible. I mean, it really is hard to overstate just how good they were today, but how good they've been all 2023. Let me turn this off. There we go.
Do you have? I would have kept it on. That's just,
it'll mess with the lights. I don't want to make it harder for the guys in post production. You get it, but
that's fair. I got holiday hoobie wuddy going because I expected to be Grinched today, and instead I end the show. I end this day feeling like the Grinch did at the end of the movie. A couple of shout outs on defense, if you will allow me. Number one, can we at this point establish? I think we can say right now we know today, Malcolm Kuntz has become the side cop, right? Like, he's the other guy. Like, you got good cop, bad cop. I don't know which one Max is, but the other one's Malcolm Kuntz at this point. Like, he's feasting on matchups that favor him because so much attention is paid to Max, who is still every bit as disruptive as we always expected he would be. Malcolm Kuntz is, to me, it looks like one of those guys that you bank on. You're bringing back next year, and he's going to be a starter. Go ahead.
Quick stat line for Malcolm Kuntz today. Fits 6 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, and 4 tackles for loss. Continue.
I mean, that's just, think about that. And it wasn't even just the sacks, because I want to be fair and reasonable here. I don't love to overanalyze sacks. There's so much that goes into a sack. It was the disruption. Even on the long third, and you may remember this play, long third, Mahomes rolling out, sort of had to throw the ball. Receiver was coming back to it, came up a yard short, created 4th and 1.5. That 4th and 1.5 came because Malcolm Kuntz was right up in the rib cage of Patrick Mahomes, right? Like that's the level of absolute greatness. And then You talk about the 2 defensive touchdowns. Yet again, 18. I mean, I saw you tweet it. Best offseason edition, midseason edition we've seen in how long? I mean,
the one
unbelievable.
The one that kept getting brought up, Fitz, and I hesitate to even go here because I don't think it's fair to Jag, but Mike Haynes is the one that I had a lot of people tweet back at me. And look, if you're in a conversation in a legitimate way with Mike Haynes, you're doing a good job. But I digress. You go for it.
No, but I think it speaks to something. But there was also a key moment here because what have we seen from AP? Antonio Pierce is wanting people to play on the edge. And the edge with accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was key when you saw AP out on the field trying to talk Jack back. Hey, too much emotion at that point. After the interception, too much emotion. And we always talk about poking the belly of the bear with Mahomes, all those things. How do you find that line? I thought the fact that the coaching staff was right up in his face. They were right up in the, hey, you need to walk it back. You need to calm it down. But they didn't take him off the field. It still just showed a trust. Like there is so much trust in these defensive guys to make plays. It's stunning. And the word I've used with you too many times, but I'll use it again today, is swarm. Like there is an explosiveness with which they react to what they're seeing. It just feels like they're better prepared. And because they're better prepared, and I can't believe I'm saying that, they are better prepared. They are seeing the play before it happens. And then they are trusting their instincts to get there. Across the board, it feels like there's a turbo button to this entire defense that we haven't seen in years. Like the level of pace to this defense is mind-blowing.
Real quick, because I want to get back to Malcolm Kuntz in a sense and just kind of put like a historical context on what we saw from him today. But you and I were texting about it way back when in October when the coaching change happened, obviously the change at the top. And I remember texting you and said, okay, like what's realistic out of the next 12 weeks or whatever it was at the time? And I said, look, I want the team to compete, blah, blah, blah. But I said, really, my biggest hope, and I remember I sent this to you and a handful of other people. I said, I just want Antonio Pierce to make the Raiders cool again. That's what I want. That is my goal for the rest of 2023. Make the Raiders cool again. Get that swag back. Make sure we're the biggest badasses on the block again. And give him credit, man, because you see Max walking around, you see Jack Jones rocking around, you see Robert Spillane doing his thing. I mean, there is no doubt that on Christmas, it is very, very cool to wear the silver and black. And Antonio Pierce deserves so much credit for that. Obviously, the players in that locker room buying in to what he's preaching. But, man, I mean, today is just kind of the embodiment of that, Fitz. Going on the road, it's cold. No one likes you in Kansas City. No one expects you in the national media. Go back to Raiders.com and look at the game picks. Not one person picked the Raiders to win this game. Not a single person. And what did the Raiders do? They went in there. So they swagged their way into Kansas City, and they're swagging their way home with a huge W, Fitz. So I think for me, mission accomplished in that regard. The Raiders are cool again, right? We talk about NWA. We talk about smoking the cigars. We talk about the fact that the coach and our coach has a cooler card than your coach. Like, all that stuff matters, right? And I mean that in the best possible sense. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily equate to winning on the field sometimes, but today it did. And man, Antonio Pierce, I can't say enough about what he has done with this group. Going back to Malcolm Kuntz for just a sec, Jason Fitz. Let's see how good your Raiders history is. Malcolm Kuntz is the first Raider to have 3 sacks in a game against the Kansas City Chiefs since. And I will give you one clue. The gentleman who did it in 2010. Who is this Raider?
Oh my God, I have no idea. Like, I was literally going to go with Greg Townsend. That was the one that came to mind, which would be a pull way into the 90s. I remember him as a kid, he had some big games. 2010. So that's like our one other good year over the course of the last, however. I don't
sleep
know.
on 2016 either. Don't sleep on 2016.
No,
yes.
That's 16. Yes, 10 and 6. Like 10 was a pretty good year. I don't know. Who do you like? Who?
We have Raiders legend Camarion Wimbley, Jason Fitz, 3 sacks against the Kansas City Chiefs, and then Tommy Kelly did it in Week 9 of 2005.
Yeah, okay. Tommy Kelly, like Wimbley was one of those interesting ones. Everybody remembers, like he had a few big games, and then it was like, pay the man, and all of a sudden it didn't go particularly well after that. Like that puts you in elite company. And I'll go back to something that hits on both Kuntz and on AP. You felt the tone, and I genuinely believe football can be won by asserting dominance in tone. The opening drive for the Chiefs, where they were sacked twice in the first 3 plays, that was all like, and Malcolm Kuntz was right there in the middle. Like, you had Max disrupt, you had Kuntz disrupt in 2 of the first 3 plays. That just, to me, was setting a tone from the outset of, we're not scared. And that's an interesting difference. Like the defense did not seem like they were worried. Like Rashee Rice went off when they played a few weeks ago. Obviously, Kelsey always is a problem. And something that you and I learned together a few weeks ago when I was out in Vegas, as we were in the car, I was talking to Raider great Eric Allen. And Eric Allen said sometimes what you need, especially when you're taking on somebody like Kelsey, you need continuity, because he said you got to remember that game was the first time, even no matter what you've seen on tape, that's the first time that Spillane has seen Kelsey in person, right? And he kept saying that what the great thing about your rivals is that you play them more, and as a defense, you figure out better and better how to slow them down. I felt like you could actually feel some of that in this game. Like Kelsey's double moves did not lead to the usual, now I have a ton of space in the middle. Like the communication, there was one big breakdown. The communication the rest of the way by this defense was just, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, we look at Kelsey's line, Fitz, 5 catches for 44 yards. I'll take that any day of the week. Any single day of the week, man. I mean, that was...
And no backbreakers. Like
nope.
5 catches, 44 yards. There wasn't a moment. He had a couple of nice plays where he bullied his way in. But like, there wasn't the, oh, son of a biscuit, here we go, there goes Kelsey. Like, that just didn't happen in this game.
No, it certainly did not. And if you're a fan of this team, that has got to be a pleasant surprise and a very Merry Christmas present indeed to have it not be Travis Kelce. I want to shift to the offensive side of the football for just a sec, Fitz. We look at the numbers here, and they are... candidly bizarre, as they tend to be sometimes. The Raiders ran for 157 yards. They threw for 62. Aiden O'Connell did not complete a pass outside of the first quarter, right? We can dissect that and what does that mean in the grand scheme of things, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure there'll be plenty of time for that. But I think the biggest thing for me, Fitz, is especially in that second half, and Antonio Pierce referenced it in his press conference. He goes, especially in that second half, it was very clear what the Raiders wanted to do. They wanted to run the football. Everyone in that stadium knew the Raiders wanted to run that football. Andy Reid and his staff knew the Raiders wanted to run that football. Everyone here in this studio, in this facility today, said, Raiders got to run the ball to be successful. Everyone knew, and they were still able to do it. The Raiders averaged 5.5 yards a carry, Fitz. 5.5. Zamir White, career high, 22 for 145, averages 6.6 yards per carry. What did we learn about Zamir White this afternoon?
Chunk yardage in the fourth quarter I thought was big for Zamir, but also vision. Man, like, here's the thing. I was the first after the Thursday night game to say, hey, let's wait a second, because stopping the run to a certain level is an effort issue. And the Chargers gave up. You can feel that. So there were a couple of plays when you go back and watch the All-22 where Zamir looked like he could have been stopped in the backfield. He wasn't stopped, but I think in part that was because the Chargers were already on vacation. So I really came into this with much lower expectations. The fact that he still ran very patient, waited for the blocking to develop in front of him, and found positive plays, even when there wasn't much to be had early on in the game. I thought it was really refreshing to see him stop at the line, but be able to drive the whole pile 3 or 4 yards. This is what Zamir wants. Like, this is Zamir's opportunity to show the league and show this team that he should be the back next year. And you can't tell me that everybody doesn't understand what's on the line. Like, this isn't just beating the Chiefs. This is beating your biggest division opponent that you have to show you can compete with 10 days after you beat the you-know-what out of the Chargers, who's also in your division. And in both of those games, Zamir White ran the football really well. Like, those are things that we turn into building blocks. Like the fact that they take on the Broncos in 2 weeks is a building block opportunity. Doing this against the AFC West when they know what's coming. In the fourth quarter, when they knew that there was no faith in Aiden O'Connell to throw the football, they were stacking the box with everybody. Kudos to Zamir for his vision, for his patience. Kudos for the line to keeping it together too.
And I apologize, I was doing some quick calculations while you were talking there, Fitz. Over the past 2 weeks, the Raiders are averaging 140.5 rushing yards a game. That will do. And AP brought up another great point in his postgame where he was obviously asked about Zamir. He was asked about the running game. And he goes, look, yes, hats off to Zamir. Dude's playing out of his mind, has made the most of his opportunity without Josh Jacobs on the field for the time being. But he goes, it's also Thayer Mumford stepping in at left tackle. You and I were talking pregame. Okay, Colton's active. We see him for just that one play when Jermaine goes down. But he goes, it's Thayer at left tackle. It's Dylan Parham being able to slide over to center. It's Jordan Meredith being on the interior. It's Andre James coming back now. You're doing all of this with a rookie quarterback and a second-year running back. That to me, when you look at it in totality, because you look at the numbers and the numbers are great, right? 160 yards on the ground, you're able to dominate there, 6 yards a carry, whatever it was. But the fact that you're able to zoom out and see all these little pieces that go into it, that to me is perhaps the more exciting part, Fitz, and where I think, okay, this is now sustainable past a week, past 2 weeks, really going into 2024. This is what the Raiders want to do, and when they're able to do it, this is a pretty good football team.
I don't know. Here's what I know about Thayer Mumford coming out, because I talked to a couple of my offensive line buddies when he was drafted, and the concept was pretty simple on him. Huge size, needs real technique development, great speed, great lateral quickness, all of these things they talk about for big boys. I don't know that there's a better situation for the organization than what's happened over the course of this year, because he's gotten run on both sides on the tackle situation where he's needed to. He's come in, and this isn't the first game where he's had to step in for Colton and has done it at a very high level. Like Thayer Mumford, I think, has proven that he's going to go into next year's camp with an opportunity to start somewhere on this line. I give Illuminor some credit for holding him off over the course of this season. But, and you mentioned Parham moving inside. I told you a long time ago, I think at some point when center is the long-term answer for him, there are moments here where you can look at it and say, okay, this is actually starting to gel together in a way that makes a lot of sense. And I also think there's a bit of a, whatever the rhythm is of this offense right now, they are running the football well because the blocking seems simplified. The guys are just pushing forward. So obviously on a game where they didn't throw the ball much and where, a combination of Aiden held it too long, Aiden seemed a little inaccurate, and the defense was getting after him, the offensive line was able to hone in on one thing they knew they'd be able to crush at, and that was moving the line of scrimmage, running the football. That was a work of art. And feel sustainable moving forward. Like, why can that offensive line not play that way next week against the Colts in Indy? There is no reason.
One thing, and you and I talked about this a little bit last week, but I feel like it's kind of been the conversation that we've had collectively over the past, 10 days now since Thursday night, as crazy as that sounds. It's, who are the 2023 Raiders, Fitz? Are they the team that put up 63 on the Chargers, or are they closer to the team that got goose-egged at home, right? Today feels like a pretty clear answer to that question. They are closer to the team that put up 63 points on a division rival. They are now a team that can go on the road, go into one of the most hostile places, one of the loudest places in the NFL, dominate, be bullies, be on the front foot, not have a whole lot cooking offensively in terms of the air game, and still find a way to win. So for me, yes, we got 2 games left, and look, I talked about it a bunch. Until there's a little E next to your name on NFL.com or whatever, you got to keep playing. You never know what's going to happen. But what an illuminating day for the Raiders. What a moment of clarity. What a 4 hours of clarity that says, okay, we know who the Raiders are now.
Let me also, while we're there for a second, look, we got so much positivity. If the positivity bothers you right now, just, go be Grinch somewhere else.
Also, great Grinch moment from Jack Jones too, with the fake out to the child.
Yeah.
I don't advocate bullying the children, Fitz, but that did make me laugh a little.
I mean, I thought it was kind of funny. Here's the thing that I think you can answer under AP. Who are these Raiders? Like, not just the identity of what's 2022, what's 2023. Mm-hmm. These Raiders, like I said, defensively, they play hard. They hit hard. They play fast to it. They're willing to take some mistakes if that's what it takes to make big plays, which you can see palpably. That's why the turnovers are up. Guys are charging towards what they see. There's no hesitation. So they're willing to take risk. They also have a very short memory defensively. There's a power to all of it. Who are the Raiders offensively? I still think, to your point, they're a run-first team that has a lot of weapons, that is still trying to find their rhythm and how to use it with a quarterback that's got a lot of learning to do. I think those are all fair statements. But here's the thing, that when this Raiders team walks into the building, they are going to take every blow you give them, and they're going to get back up. This feels like a very Rocky football team, like in the sense of like the movie. Like, maybe there are big warts, but it doesn't matter. Like, they take the punch and they punch back. And that hasn't always been the case. That certainly wasn't the case in the previous regime. It didn't feel like there was this punching moment. Like, this was a 20-7 win. And if you want to be negative Nancy, you can say, well, the offense didn't really get any points. But also, if you want to be positive Polly, you can look at it and see they took a knee with 2 minutes left at the 10-yard line because they decided, and they mercy ruled the Chiefs at the end of the game in Arrowhead. You can't tell me that doesn't, and on a drive where, my God, the offense had to step up, they got it done. Like, whatever this team needs to do, they do. And we will spend all year regretting one or two losses over the course of the season because the whole thing would look differently. But to your point, they play the Colts, who right now have the last seed in the playoffs in the AFC, according to NFL.com. They play the Colts next week. You want to make the playoffs, that path is still there. The probability is not high. There's a lot in the way. The path is still out there. And what we're learning is that this team doesn't give a damn. It wasn't that long ago, smart writers that cover the Raiders, and I do mean smart, were saying they should shut everybody down. There was no point. And now you sit with 2 games left and the playoffs are at least possible and guys are out there winning jobs and changing the entire perception. That's the point. This Raiders team plays like the point is to beat you every Sunday and let the rest work itself out.
Meaningful football. That is, if you're a fan of any team, that is your only hope, Fitz. He's like, yes, winning the Super Bowl is great, but I want to be playing meaningful football during the holidays, after the holidays. Look, the Raiders now go to Indianapolis, to your point, Fitz, is that a New Year's Eve or a New Year's Day, fan? What do we got? Surrounding New Year's, and they're playing meaningful football. They are in it. Now, the shot might be a long one. The statistics might say, hey, they don't have much of a chance, but they're playing meaningful football. And for a team that has had as many ups and downs as the 2023 Las Vegas Raiders have, man, this is, let us not forget, and what happened week 1 to this team, right? Week 1, 3 days before the game, 4 days before the game, you lose one of your best players on the defensive side of the football. The coaching change. There's been so many things that have happened to the Raiders. And credit to Max Crosby, credit to Josh Jacobs, Devontae for keeping this group together. And look, man, it's going to get weird, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And, if you're a Raiders fan, you just have to enjoy it, Fitz. You have to enjoy this moment because we have waited a very long time for a moment like this in Arrowhead. And we got to celebrate it, right?
I think also something I've said to you, I think privately and publicly, is that I don't want whatever decisions could have been made regarding Rich Bisaccia. I don't want to decide Antonio Pierce. I think it's very important to remember that these are 2 very different teams, 2 very different years, 2 very different situations. All I have asked for through this whole process is whatever the process looks like for Mark Davis, I want him to be thorough and make sure he's getting the right guy. That's all I've ever asked. I don't care. So nothing about Rich Bisaccia influences what I'm saying right now. What I am saying right now is that it is hard to watch Antonio Pierce today and not feel like he's found the pulse of a locker room, which I believe is the single most important thing a head coach has to do. The second most important thing you have to do is you have to find great coordinators. And I would argue right now that there's a ton of fans listening to this show that a year ago were begging for the Raiders to make a change at defensive coordinator. And now I'm looking at it saying, my God, how could you? Like, this defense did not win a lot of games on paper coming into this season. And now they sit as, I think, one of the more dominant and difficult defenses to deal with in the entire playoff hunt moving forward. There is plenty to work out on the offensive side of the ball. And I would be interested to see what the long-term plan for AP looks like, who he's going to bring in, how it all looks. But today, after you do that to the Chargers, after you do that to the Chiefs at Arrowhead, man, all I want as a fan is to feel hope at the end of a season and say, you know what? There's still something to build on here. I never expected to feel this kind of hope today, and it comes from watching what they just did.
And I think for me, Fitz, and look, I've said this a million times, I'm a firm believer in hey, it doesn't matter how you got there. If you win the game, you win the game. If you lose the game, you lose the game, right? Not a big moral victories or, hey, the guys tried really hard today kind of guy. There were a few moments to me, and I'll kind of contradict myself immediately after saying that. There were a few moments in this game where you go, oh boy, are the Chiefs going to chief? Is Mahomes going to do just enough? There's a few of them, right? We look at that, some of those penalties, which I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, but come on. There's a few of those. Patrick Mahomes just does just enough in the backfield. He escapes, he runs, he does this, he does that. And you go, oh God, much like a Christmas movie or a Christmas Story, I've seen this movie way too many times, particularly in December. But the Raiders didn't allow that to happen. Yes, Mahomes had his moments of magic. Yes, Kelsey got loose a little bit. Yes, there was the trick play, but the Raiders did not allow that to take them to the ground, right? And so I think that, yes, you had to beat the Chiefs, and it didn't matter if you turned the ball over 9 times and you won by 1. The Raiders took the Chiefs' best shot today. They had the moments. Patrick Mahomes had his moments, but the Raiders did just enough to get by that. And I think in a big sense, right, as we zoom out, Fitz, I think that matters. I think that the Raiders were able to go into Arrowhead and clearly not play their best game offensively and are still flying back to Las Vegas with a W. I think that matters. I think how the win happened matters. I think that the way that it happened, the time of the year that it happened, I think it all matters when we look at the 2023 Las Vegas Raiders.
I also, yes, you're right. Everything you said is brilliant. I want to remind the world that this game was at home for the Chiefs with everything on the line.
Yeah.
Remembering, this is my favorite Patrick Mahomes stat everybody overuses. Take a drink every time you hear it. My guy has never played a true playoff game on the road in his entire career. And the top overall seed in the AFC was still there. It was still there for them to fight for. This was not an unmotivated team. This was not a team that had nothing to play for. And very clearly, this was not the Chiefs finding a way to lose a football game. That happens. Sometimes teams just get in their own way. This was the Raiders going out and beating the Chiefs. Like there's just a difference to me. And to your point, the number of times that I, as a fan, said, here we go again, especially with Mahomes, I think that's natural. You never got that feel from the team. There was never a tightness from the team. And when the game got to 20-14, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, God, now an offense that hasn't done anything all quarter, all half, that offense is going to have to keep Mahomes off the field for the rest of the game. Sweet baby Lord. Like I was looking over and thinking, am I going to have to text Eddie and be like, dude, I'm going to be a little drunk by the time we do this. I don't know if I can make my way through it, right? Like I wasn't sure I was going to go. For the offense and Zamir particularly to get the ball and then eat the rest of the game. Like, my God, a year ago, we were sitting here repeatedly saying, can the defense just make a stop at the end of can the defense find a way to get off the field? This year, it's been, can the offense find a way to not make this more difficult? They did. That drive, man, that was a chef's kiss drive and a chef's kiss moment for a team that easily could have folded against a team that had everything on the line against Mahomes, and none of it felt too big for the Raiders. And that's just, I don't care what anybody says. That is different. That is different than it felt in week 2. That is different than it felt last year. That is different than it has felt under prior regimes. There is a different swagger to this team.
And Antonio Pierce said, he goes, it's the best thing to do in football. Everyone knows in the stadium that you're going to run it. And what do? You run it, and then you take 3 knees to end the football game. Doesn't get better than that, particularly on a holiday with the entire NFL world watching. Fitz, we got 2 of these left. All right, Raiders sitting at 7-8. We heard a lot about it on the broadcast about how the Raiders are still alive, what this means for the Chiefs, what this means for the whole AFC playoff picture. Okay, I don't want to get too deep into the numbers and doing full, going Minority Report style and moving the numbers around, things like that. What do we need to see these final 2 weeks from your Las Vegas Raiders? Yes, we want to make the playoffs. Yes, you want to keep this magical little adventure alive. But going back on the road now on a short week to Indy, what do we need to see from the Raiders in 6 days' time?
I think what the Raiders have to do now is maintain. Like we need to see that this identity maintains its way through. We need to see the swarming defense. We need to see the electric pass rush. We need to see the offensive line hold up, the run game continue. You need to see that. This is going to be a unique challenge coming up against the Colts too, because they are, even without Anthony Richardson as their quarterback, Shane Steichen loves to run a very RPO heavy, eye discipline offense, right? So it's going to take a lot of discipline from guys like Spillane and Divine Diablo, Trayvon Merrick. Like, guys are going to have to be in the right spot. They're going to have to trust the film study on a short week, which is asking a lot. And then you're going to take on a Broncos team at the end of the year that, again, because it's a division rival, that will also likely have a ton on the line. Like, look, we have to acknowledge the Raiders do not control their own destiny, but we also have to acknowledge that the team that they are playing on Sunday is the team that is ahead of them in the standings right now. Do they need a bunch of other teams to lose? Yes. But if you're the Raiders, man, you got to come out and find a way to keep doing what you're doing well. In a beautiful world, could we see everything click for Aiden? Maybe. I think there's a short-term and a long-term conversation about whether Aiden O'Connell can be the quarterback for this team moving forward. I have my doubts. Whether Aiden O'Connell is the quarterback that can get them to the playoffs, I mean, we'll see. That's just part of it. You got to see more development of the offense, but that's asking a lot in these last 2 weeks. So you're going to have to ask the defense to continue to play at this level.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. What do I want to see over the last 2 weeks, particularly on Sunday in Indy? Consistency, baby. Keep doing it again and again and again, brick by brick, day by day, and just dominant defensive performance after dominant defensive performance, Fitz. Incredible. On the way out, though, I teased it at the top. Some Jack Jones history, Raiders history. Jack Jones is the first Raider with back-to-back games with a pick six since who?
Nnamdi Asomugha.
Ooh, got to go back a little bit further than that.
Eric Allen, maybe our
bang, light it up. Here we go. Yeah, there it is. Eric Allen in the year 2000, who's on the other side of this wall, dominating Raiders post-game live. What a guy! He does it all. On the way out, though, Fitz, 30 seconds of plugs. Where can the people find you?
Check out the Yahoo Sports app. We're doing a ton of content out there. Got a lot of NFL shows that go up there, video on demand, and we also clip out. We talk about every single game, not just the Cowboys. So check us out. I'm just saying. Throwing a little shade at some people. So yeah, you can check out every game there, and also Fox Sports Radio. I'll actually be tomorrow morning. I'm filling in on the Fox Sports Radio morning show, super early. Let's go. But on Saturdays you can always check me out, hanging out with the fellas. And then basically I'm just Eddie's +1 to everything at the Super Bowl. He hasn't necessarily known that yet, but I'm his +1 to all the parties. I'll be out there all week. So
hey, a midweek party is tough for your boy though, man. Look, even a Friday night party is tough for me these days as an 8-month-old, but a midweek, ooh, you might have twice as much fun for both of us. How about that?
It's Super Bowl week. You just walk in, you get me in as your +1, and then boom, we get you out the back door.
And then I get to go home and get my 8 hours. I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with everything that we saw today, Jason Fitz, man. What a incredible start. Or I guess we're about halfway through Christmas for everyone. So on that note, for Eddie Paskal, my guy Jason Fitz, everyone else at Silver and Black Productions, happy holidays, Raider Nation. Merry Christmas. Enjoy the gift. It does not get much better than this. And we will see you guys next week. Same time, same place for our next episode of the 5th Quarter.